If you stood at Point Nemo, you would be farther from any human being than anywhere else on the entire planet. No boats, no airplanes, no islands, nothing. Just silence, stretching more than 1,000 miles in every direction. Point Nemo is so isolated that astronauts orbiting above Earth are often closer to it than anyone down here. Imagine that. The closest human to you isn't on land, but floating in space. But here's where the story turns dark. For decades, Point Nemo has been used as Earth's secret dumping ground, a place where dead spacecraft are sent to crash. NASA, Roscosmos, European agencies, even covert military programs. When a satellite becomes too old, too dangerous, or too classified to leave drifting in orbit, it dies at Point Nemo. Hundreds of spacecraft, burned, shattered, and forgotten, now rest at the bottom of this ocean. The Russian Mir space station, American cargo modules, European science labs, entire classified satellites that were never even announced. All of them buried under thousands of meters of cold, crushing darkness. But here's the part no one explains. This region is almost completely lifeless. No fish, no coral reefs, no predators. It is a biological desert, a place where sound barely travels, a place that feels like Earth's own version of deep space. And that emptiness raises the question, why did we choose this place? Why does the world dump its most dangerous relics here? And why does this part of the ocean remain almost completely unexplored, despite decades of scientific interest? Some experts believe the seafloor may hold geological structures unlike anywhere else. Others think something massive may have shaped the landscape long before humans existed. The only certainty is this: Point Nemo hides more about our past and our future than the world admits. Deep beneath the waves of Point Nemo lies something no human eye has ever seen, a graveyard of machines that once lived in space. Imagine an underwater cemetery stretching across miles of seafloor, filled with shattered satellites, broken panels, nuclear-powered equipment, and twisted metal from secret Cold War missions. This is where Earth hides the things it doesn't want anyone to find. When a spacecraft dies, engineers carefully guide it toward a final descent path. It burns in the atmosphere, breaks apart, and whatever survives plunges straight into the silent waters of Point Nemo. No recovery teams, no retrieval missions, no inspection. Everything stays on the bottom, forever. The most famous ghost in this graveyard is the Mir space station. Once a shining symbol of international science, it now lies scattered across Point Nemo's abyss, massive fragments resting in the cold darkness where no light reaches. But Mir is only the beginning. Military satellites packed with classified sensors, foreign spy tech, abandoned research modules, hundreds of objects that once orbited Earth, now decomposing in a place where no one will ever disturb them. And because this region is nearly lifeless, nothing grows over the wreckage. No coral, no microorganisms, no scavengers. The debris sits exactly where it landed, perfectly preserved in the cold stillness. Scientists worry that toxic fuel, radioactive elements, and rare metals may slowly leak into the water, but reaching the graveyard is nearly impossible. The depth alone is enough to crush most submarines. So we are left with questions. What exactly is down there? What classified objects were dropped into this abyss? And are we hiding discoveries or simply burying mistakes? Point Nemo's graveyard is the one place on Earth where the past falls from the sky and the ocean quietly swallows it without a trace. In 1997, something woke up the Pacific Ocean. A sound so powerful, so deep, and so impossible that scientists had no explanation. It was captured by underwater microphones thousands of miles apart, echoing through the ocean like the roar of something ancient. They called it the Bloop. At first, experts believed the sound came from a living creature because the frequency signature matched organic movement. But here's the problem. No known animal, not even a blue whale, can produce a sound that loud. To make the bloop, a creature would have to be hundreds of meters long, larger than anything that has ever existed in modern science. But then came the second shock. The sound originated near Point Nemo, the most lifeless ocean region on Earth. Why would a living creature, especially a massive one, exist in a place with almost no food, no ecosystem, no reefs, nothing to sustain life? Some rejected the idea entirely. They claimed it was ice shifting in Antarctica. But the acoustic fingerprint didn't match ice. The tone, the pattern, the rise and fall of the sound, everything pointed back to biology. NOAA quietly archived the recording. Researchers stopped discussing it publicly, and the world moved on. But the truth remains unresolved. What caused a sound so powerful it shook sensors thousands of miles apart? Why did it come from one of the least explored places on Earth? And why, since 1997, has nothing like it ever been heard again? Was it an unknown species? A geological event that only happens once every few centuries? Or something deeper, something the ocean refuses to reveal? Point Nemo is the one place on Earth where mysteries don't just happen, they echo. There's a place in the Pacific Ocean where even the bravest sailors refuse to speak above a whisper. A place so isolated, so brutally alone, that astronauts in the ISS are closer to human civilization than anyone floating on those waters. This is Point Nemo, also known as the oceanic pole of inaccessibility. But tonight, you're going to hear the part of the story very few people talk about, because it's not just the silence of Point Nemo that terrifies explorers. It's the voices that no recording device has ever been able to identify. Our story begins in 1997, when a deep-sea microphone picked up something strange, a sound so loud, so powerful, it echoed across the entire Pacific. Scientists labeled it the bloop. Officially, they called it ice. Unofficially, many ocean experts disagreed. It was too organic, too alive, and Point Nemo was right at the center of it. But here's what the public never heard. Multiple vessels passing near Point Nemo reported hearing something far more disturbing. A rhythm, like slow breathing, a pulsing pattern, repeating with perfect timing. Some crews described it as something massive shifting below the ship. Others said it felt like the ocean itself was watching them. In 2003, a private research vessel drifted into Point Nemo after engine failure. Every camera failed, the GPS glitched, but the radio? Oh, the radio stayed on. And what they heard, none of them could ever explain. A low-frequency growl, rising and falling like a living creature. One crew member said it felt like a warning. Another claimed it felt like a message meant for someone or something below. If you're wondering why this matters, well, here's the twist. Point Nemo is also Earth's unofficial spaceship graveyard. NASA and other space agencies intentionally crash old satellites and spacecraft here because it's so empty, so silent, so forgotten. But what if it's not empty? What if the sounds weren't coming from the ocean, but from something already waiting there? Something interested in what we keep dropping into its territory. Some oceanographers have suggested a terrifying possibility. If an unknown species had survived deep in the untouched trenches of the Pacific, Point Nemo would be the perfect hiding place. Maximum isolation, zero human activity, no fishing, no shipping lanes, just darkness, pressure, and silence. Tonight, as you watch this video, 3,000 miles of black water stretch above Point Nemo's floor, and somewhere in that darkness, a low-frequency pulse continues, steady, rhythmic, waiting. And the question that scares researchers the most isn't what made the bloop. It's, was it calling? or answering. Imagine you're in the middle of the Pacific. No ships, no aircraft, no land, no lights. Just water, thousands of miles of it, stretching into the black. This is where our story takes place, a place so cut off from humanity that even radio waves travel differently here. Scientists call it Point Nemo. Locals call it the Dead Zone. But after what you're about to hear, you might call it something else. The ocean's black box. In 2014, a routine oceanic mapping project detected an anomaly near Point Nemo. A repeating signal. Slow, mechanical, almost like a coded transmission. At first, researchers assumed it was a submarine, but there was a problem. The signal came from a depth no submarine on Earth could reach, not even military class. When the frequency was analyzed, it revealed a chilling detail. The pattern wasn't random, it was structured, engineered. Think about that for a second, because the ocean floor near Point Nemo is one of the least explored places on the planet. We know more about Mars than that trench. For months, the signal pulsed, steady, consistent, like a beacon. Then suddenly, it stopped. A week later, it returned, but with a new pattern, like the same message, but rewritten. The U.S. Navy classified the recordings almost immediately, but a leaked internal memo contained a single sentence that made researchers pause. Assume non-terrestrial origin until proven otherwise. Non-terrestrial? Deep in the ocean? It sounds impossible until you remember what Point Nemo is used for. It's where agencies like NASA send their dead spacecraft to crash. Hundreds of satellites, probes, and old space modules now rest on the ocean floor here. But what if something else was there first? What if something heard them? Some oceanologists proposed a theory that shocked even the scientific community. What if an ancient species had been using low-frequency communication long before humanity invented satellites? And what if our falling space debris interfered with that system? It would explain why the mysterious signals changed in 2014. Something reacted. As of today, the source of the signal has never been found. No expedition has reached the trench, no drone has survived more than a few hours in its pressure zone. And every time a research team tries to map the area, electronics fail, hard drives wipe, as if something down there refuses to be recorded. So the next time you think of Point Nemo as an empty place, remember this: emptiness usually doesn't talk. Something does. And it's still sending signals. If you dropped your phone, your radio, your camera, and every piece of technology you own into the middle of the Pacific, they would all tell you the exact same thing. I don't want to be here. Because Point Nemo isn't just remote, it's hostile. Electronics fail here more than anywhere else on Earth. And that's exactly how this mystery begins. In 2019, a research vessel named the Aquila Ridge attempted a full digital mapping of Point Nemo. The team had the best underwater drones, high-frequency sonar, backup servers, and specialized insulated cables designed to withstand extreme pressure. But the moment their drone crossed into the trench, every system began to glitch. GPS drifted wildly, showing impossible coordinates. Battery drained at 10 times normal speed. Cameras flickered like something was interfering with light itself. The drone lasted 6 minutes before shutting down completely. When they pulled it back up, something unbelievable happened. The drone powered on again, perfectly healthy, as if nothing had affected it. The crew ran diagnostics for hours. 0 damage, 0 corruption, 0 explanation. This wasn't a technical failure, it was a zone. Some scientists suggested intense magnetic anomalies, others blamed unusual deep-sea chemistry, But one researcher proposed something far more unsettling. Point Nemo might not just be isolated, it might be shielded. Imagine the Earth having natural dead zones where unknown forces distort electromagnetic activity, forces we've never been able to classify, forces that could be natural or ancient or something else entirely. Now combine that with the fact that Point Nemo lies almost exactly beneath the spacecraft graveyard, dozens of crashed capsules, satellites, and space debris. Equipment falling from space, equipment that would absolutely emit signals, metals, and radiation. What if something down there reacts to anything technological entering its territory? What if the reason devices fail is because something is actively suppressing them? One crew member described it best. It felt like we crossed into something's home, and it didn't want us turning the lights on. To this day, no mapping mission has successfully captured a complete view of Point Nemo's floor. Videos always cut out, sonar always blurs, signals always distort. It's almost as if the ocean is hiding something, or protecting something, or warning us not to look. Whatever lies in the darkness of Point Nemo, it doesn't want to be seen. And maybe, just maybe, that's the scariest part.
The ocean is full of shadows, but there is one shadow near Point Nemo that behaves in a way no scientist has ever been able to explain. It doesn't drift. It doesn't fade. It follows. This incident begins with the cargo vessel Northwind Explorer, which accidentally passed within 30 nautical miles of Point Nemo in 2016. The crew didn't expect anything unusual. Calm waters, clear skies, zero wind. But just after midnight, the ship's radar detected something massive directly beneath them. Something bigger than any submarine, larger than any whale, yet completely silent. At first, the crew thought it was a glitch, but then the shadow moved, slowly, deliberately, tracking the ship's course. Every time the vessel turned, the shadow turned with it. When the ship slowed down, the shadow slowed too. It wasn't random ocean life, it was intelligent. The captain ordered a sonar sweep. What they heard made several crew members physically step back. A low, metallic vibration, like a whale song crossed with a mechanical engine. Not organic, not human. Something in between. But here's the strange part. The sound matched fragments of the same frequency detected during the 1997 Bloop event. Only this time, it was closer. Much closer. For 2 hours, the shadow stayed beneath the Northwind Explorer, never surfacing, never drifting away. The ocean around the ship felt unnaturally still, as if the water itself was holding its breath. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the shadow broke contact. The radar showed it sinking straight down, faster than any known creature could possibly dive. Within seconds, it was gone. When the ship returned to port, the crew filed a report. The company sealed it. The Navy reviewed it. And then everything disappeared behind closed doors. But one internal note from a classified communication leaked online, reading, "Object displays adaptive tracking behavior. Recommend avoidance of Point Nemo sector." Adaptive tracking behavior, meaning whatever that shadow was, it chose to follow the ship. Scientists who studied the leaked radar images have a chilling theory. The shadow wasn't an animal, it was a structure. A shape, something with edges too straight and too symmetrical to be natural. Some say it looked like a giant manta ray made of metal. Others say it resembled a wing. But the real fear isn't what the shadow was. The real fear is that researchers believe it may not have been alone. Because weeks after the Northwind Explorer incident, 2 other ships logged the exact same phenomenon. A silent, massive shadow that matched their speed, and then vanished into Point Nemo's abyss. Whatever lives down there is watching, and sometimes it follows.
Every spacecraft that falls into Point Nemo is supposed to stay there forever, silent, broken, buried under miles of crushing pressure. But in 2021, something made NASA rethink that assumption. This story begins with a Russian space capsule that re-entered the atmosphere and was scheduled to crash precisely into Point Nemo, joining dozens of other dead satellites. The impact was normal, predictable, unremarkable, until 3 months later, when a U.S. Oceanic Patrol picked up a signal coming from the exact crash coordinates. A signal transmitting an old Soviet frequency, one that should have been impossible for a destroyed capsule to produce. The patrol flagged it, NASA investigated, Russia denied sending anything, and the frequency kept repeating. When analyzed, the transmission revealed something bizarre. The signal didn't match the capsule's design. The pulse pattern was slower, heavier, almost like a heartbeat. But the direction was unmistakable. It was coming from the ocean floor. NASA deployed a drone to investigate. It descended for 4,000 meters, 5,000, 6,000. Everything seemed normal. Then, suddenly, just as the drone camera began to focus on the sea floor, the feed cut. The drone vanished. 6 hours later, something surfaced near the patrol ship. A piece of the capsule's metal shell. But here's the terrifying part. The titanium was bent outward, as if crushed by pressure from the inside. Something opened it. Scientists proposed every explanation possible. Deep-sea pressure, geological movement, thermal expansion. None fit the physical damage. The bending pattern was too precise, too uniform, like something inside the capsule pushed its way out. But pushed out from what? There was nothing living inside those satellites. No power, no heat, no biology. Unless some researchers privately speculated that something at Point Nemo may be interacting with the debris we crashed there, using it, breaking it open, or even repurposing the material. One leaked email from a NASA engineer read, "The patterns on the metal are not random. They look intentional." The official story? The capsule simply imploded. Case closed. The unofficial story? The capsule didn't die. Something woke it up. And if something deep in Point Nemo can interact with objects from space, objects it should have no reason to understand, then it raises a chilling question. What else has it opened? Most places in the deep ocean are completely dark. No sunlight, no glow, no color. But Point Nemo breaks that rule. In late 2022, a New Zealand research crew sailing near the region reported something extraordinary. At 2:14 a.m., while the ship was moving across calm water, the ocean beneath them lit up. Soft at first, like a dim blue haze, then brighter, stronger. The glow spread out in a perfect circle, pulsating like the ocean was breathing light. The crew recorded everything they could, but every time the camera pointed directly at the glowing water, the footage distorted, glitching into digital noise. But the crew did capture something crucial. The glow wasn't coming from the surface, it was rising from below. One scientist described it as a living aurora, except auroras don't happen underwater, and nothing known to science produces light at that depth with that intensity. The glow grew brighter, forming long vertical beams that reached upward like columns stretching from the sea floor to the ship's hull. Some crew members said it felt like the lights were scanning the water, almost searching for something. The glow lasted nearly 4 minutes. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it collapsed. The entire ocean went pitch black again. But here's where things get disturbing. When the team reviewed the ship's sonar logs, they found something terrifying. Right before the lights appeared, a massive object was detected rising from the deep. It matched the size and shape of the same shadow reported by previous vessels near Point Nemo. A wing-like structure, almost metallic, except this time it was glowing. Some researchers believe the glow was bioluminescence from an undiscovered deep-sea organism, but that explanation fails for one reason. Bioluminescence doesn't create vertical beams of light, and it doesn't distort electronics on a ship. Others say it may be thermal vents, but vents don't move, they don't rise, they don't pulse. So what did the crew witness? A classified summary from a government analysis team offers one chilling line. Light source appears to originate from a mobile structure. A structure. Not a creature, not a natural formation. Whatever rose beneath the New Zealand ship, it wasn't supposed to exist, and the crew who witnessed it said the same thing. It felt like something was waking up. Every mystery we've uncovered, the bloop, the signals, the shadow, the dead capsules, the glowing water, leads to one final question. What is actually living at Point Nemo? In 2024, an international research coalition attempted something unprecedented, a full unmanned descent into the trench using a new titanium alloy submersible drone. Stronger, faster, better insulated, designed to survive pressures that would crush a nuclear submarine like paper. Its mission was simple: reach the deepest part of Point Nemo and transmit live video. For the first hour, the descent was calm. Clear visibility, good sonar, normal pressure readings. But at 7,900 meters, the drone detected something strange. A perfectly flat surface. Not rock, not sand, something smoother. As it lowered closer, the surface reflected the drone's lights, like polished metal. The research team thought it was debris from a fallen spacecraft, but when the drone approached, the reflection shifted, like the surface flexed, responding to the light. Then, a pulse. A massive, low-frequency vibration shook the drone, not from around it, from below it. The polished surface rippled, expanding outward like a gigantic diaphragm. At that moment, every alarm triggered. Pressure spiked to impossible levels. The drone's imaging system froze, its compass reversed direction, and then the surface below it opened. Not cracked, not broke, opened. A circular section peeled back like an iris, revealing a glowing abyss beneath it. The drone tried to ascend, but gravitational readings flipped. Something was pulling it downward. The last image transmitted, a blurry, distorted frame, showed what looked like a massive, symmetrical structure. Ribbed curves, smooth plating, and a dark central cavern pulsing with faint blue light. Then, silence. Total system failure. Drone lost. But here's the detail the public never heard. Seconds before the signal died, the drone transmitted one final piece of data, a pattern in the vibration readings. The pattern matched the exact frequency of the 1997 bloop. Same rhythm, same intervals, same signature. Except this time, the frequency was clearer, closer, stronger, meaning the thing that made the bloop wasn't moving randomly, it was waiting. And as the research team reviewed the final logs, one scientist whispered something that would haunt everyone who heard it. That wasn't a creature. That was an entrance. If that's true, then Point Nemo isn't just a graveyard. It's a doorway. A doorway to something ancient, enormous, and far more intelligent than anything living on the surface. And after everything we've uncovered, there's only one terrifying conclusion left. Point Nemo isn't the middle of nowhere. It's the center of something.